G'day, mate. Yep, the new Commodore. Gosh, I'm probably touching a few nerves there, aren't I? What Aussie car has ever had more sort of debate around it? This isn't an Australian Commodore. Well, I just want to clear a couple of things up. Sure, it might only have an Australian badge, but the Commodore, right from when it first started back in the late 70s, 78, 79, was actually not from Australia. In fact, it was probably about as Australian as Crowded House. Aside from the VE and VF Commodores, every other car actually was a German car based on an Opel. So this car is just taken it a step further. Not only is it German designed and developed, it's also German built. So this is it, a European Commodore. If you like, well, I think it's pretty fair von Dinkum. Well, the first question really to ask is, what does this mean for the Kiwi motorist? Well, let's look to start with. It really does look good. This is a properly good looking Commodore, and especially in this VXR spec, this is the top model and arguably the car with the biggest job to do, but more on that in a moment. One thing about these Commodores is that right across the range, even though you'll see 2-litre engines in the front wheel drive models, every engine is more powerful than the 3-litre and 3.6-litre V6 it replaces, except in the case of the SSV Redline. 6.2-litre V8, no, this is a V6, but the numbers are still pretty darn good. 235 kilowatts. But speaking of numbers after that, this car really does win. 9-speed auto. It's also got 4-wheel drive and not 4 but 5 doors. In fact, I'm going to come around and show you that now on the way there. Check out that Brembo brakes. Brilliant. And speaking of the 5 doors, look at that boot. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. It gives away exactly 5 litres of space compared to the boot in the old car. But where this car wins, and where it's really no competition, is these seats fold down. And you get just under 1,800 litres of cargo space. That's what the old car couldn't do. Well, that's enough about the back end. Let's talk about the front, because I love these lights. They're LEDs, but they're adaptive. There are 16 separate LED bulbs. And if we do the high beam, see that? So they can change the way they project the beam, so it doesn't just give you the best possible light, and trust me, these are like the stadium lights at Eden Park. It also makes sure that other drivers don't get dazzled. So when you go around corners, they aim and do all that clever stuff. In fact, speaking of clever stuff, jump inside here, because these seats, as well as heating and cooling, they've got a massage thing here, all different kinds of massage they can give you. They can squeeze you in and make you nice and comfortable. I mentioned the 9-speed auto, 8-inch touchscreen. The numbers are great with this car. Android Auto, CarPlay, wireless phone charging. You just sit it down, away it charges. The Bose audio, they really have not sort of skimped on anything. And speaking of that safety as well, collision alert, lane avoidance, it'll park itself. Of course, something I'd never need. But really, they've tried. This car has to sell against Europeans. It sounds good too. Now, in fact, that's one thing that this car doesn't get in Europe, is the V6 engine. So we are getting the best Commodore you can get on the planet. And look, I've got to say, genuinely, this is a car made to compete with the Europeans. Essentially what I'm saying is nothing's been left out. Refinement is the key word. This car has it all. I suppose you could say that Holden have replaced the hooligan with a sophisticated European. There is one number 2 that this can't match any of the old Commodores. In fact, right across the ZB range, if you compare model for model, like for like, this car actually costs less. And including this one, if you compare it to the SSV Redline, $8,000 less at $67,990. It really is a lot of car for the money.